Right now, a lot of Americans are starting to ask a very serious question. Why did the United States suddenly find itself moving toward a dangerous conflict with Iran? And more importantly, who actually benefits from this situation? Because while the headlines are filled with military strikes and rising tensions overseas, back at home, the economic picture has been getting worse and worse for ordinary people. Gas prices are climbing, job numbers are shaky, and families are already feeling the pressure on their wallets. So the timing of all this has raised serious concerns among critics of Donald Trump. Some analysts believe the sudden escalation with Iran may not just be about national security. They argue it could also be a political strategy designed to shift the public conversation away from domestic problems that have been building for months. I'm going to break down exactly what's happening here, especially from an economic perspective, because the ripple effects of this conflict are already spreading through global markets and hitting American consumers directly. Let's start with energy. Before tensions with Iran escalated, global oil prices were relatively stable. For months, crude oil had been trading around $70 per barrel. That level was manageable for the global economy and helped keep gasoline prices relatively under control. But once military strikes began and fears of a larger regional conflict started spreading, markets reacted almost immediately. Investors began pricing in the possibility that oil supplies could be disrupted, and when oil markets panic, prices move fast. Within days, oil prices shot upward, climbing past $100 per barrel and continuing to rise. For the average American driver, that change isn't just a number on a financial chart. It translates directly into higher prices at the gas pump. Experts now warn that gasoline prices could increase dramatically if tensions continue to escalate. Some estimates suggest prices could jump by 50% or more compared to where they were just weeks ago. And the reason for that fear centers on one of the most important energy choke points in the entire world, the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow waterway in the Middle East is responsible for transporting nearly 20% of the world's oil supply. Every single day, massive tankers carrying energy resources pass through that corridor on their way to global markets. If shipping in that area becomes restricted or unsafe due to military activity, the impact on energy prices can be immediate and severe. Right now, many shipping companies are already becoming cautious. Some vessels are slowing down operations, others are waiting for military escorts, and insurers are raising premiums for ships traveling through the region. That creates delays, uncertainty, and higher costs, and every one of those costs eventually gets passed down to consumers. But here's where critics of the administration are raising another major concern. They argue that this conflict may be distracting Americans from serious economic warning signs that were already appearing before the situation with Iran even began. For example, recent employment reports showed troubling data. Instead of adding new jobs, the economy reportedly lost tens of thousands of positions in a single month. That kind of downturn raises alarms for economists, especially when combined with inflation and rising costs of living. For many households, energy expenses are already taking a larger portion of their monthly budget than they did just a few years ago. Gasoline, electricity, heating fuel, all of these essentials add up quickly. Now imagine those costs increasing again because global oil markets are under stress. This is exactly why some analysts believe the political gamble behind escalating tensions overseas could backfire badly. If Americans start feeling even more economic pain, frustration with leadership could grow rather than fade. Another major concern involves the long-term cost of military conflict itself. Wars are incredibly expensive. Military operations, weapons systems, logistics, troop deployments, intelligence operations, all of that requires enormous funding. And history shows that once conflicts begin, the financial costs can spiral far beyond initial estimates. Some projections suggest that a prolonged conflict in the region could eventually cost hundreds of billions of dollars. Critics argue that money could be used for other priorities at home, like improving infrastructure, expanding healthcare access, or helping families afford education and housing. Instead, they worry the country could end up pouring vast resources into another unstable geopolitical situation. And the strategic question remains unanswered. If military action escalates further, what exactly is the long-term objective? Is it deterrence? Is it regime pressure? Or is there a broader regional strategy that has not yet been clearly explained to the public? Foreign policy experts often refer to something called the "you break it, you own it" principle. Once a major power intervenes in a country or destabilizes a region, it often becomes responsible for managing the aftermath. That can mean years, sometimes decades, of political, military, and economic involvement. Critics argue that before any major escalation happens, there should be a clear and detailed plan for what comes next. But right now, many observers say the messaging from leadership has been inconsistent. Different statements, different strategies, and shifting explanations have created confusion about the ultimate goal. Meanwhile, the economic consequences continue unfolding. Financial markets hate uncertainty. Oil traders, shipping companies, insurers, investors, all of them react quickly when geopolitical risks increase. And that reaction shows up in higher prices, unstable markets, and rising costs for ordinary consumers. Some economists are already warning that if oil climbs toward $140 per barrel, gasoline prices in parts of the United States could double compared to earlier levels. For families already dealing with rising grocery bills, rent payments, and healthcare expenses, that kind of increase would be extremely painful. And politically, it could create serious challenges for the administration. Public opinion often shifts rapidly when economic conditions deteriorate. Voters tend to judge leadership based on the cost of living they experience in their daily lives. Gas prices, food costs, employment opportunities. Those are the issues people feel most directly. If the economic strain continues to grow while a costly conflict unfolds overseas, critics believe the political consequences could become severe. In the end, the biggest question facing the country right now is whether this confrontation will remain limited or expand into something much larger. Because if tensions spiral further, the consequences won't just be felt on battlefields in the Middle East. They will be felt at gas stations, grocery stores, workplaces, and household budgets across the United States. And that's why this moment is being watched so closely, not just by military analysts and diplomats, but by economists, voters, and families who are already struggling to keep up with rising costs. The coming months will reveal whether this strategy stabilizes the region or creates an even bigger storm for both the global economy and American politics.